welcome back to Identiverse 2024. We are live here in Las Vegas. I'm your host. My name is Ron Eddings, and I have a great guest with me here today. I have Gerry Gebel, who is the VP of Products and Standards at Strata. What's going on? What's going on, Gerry?
Great to be with you here, Ron. Awesome to be here.
It is awesome to see you. Right before we hit record, we were speaking about your relationship with the event. And you said that you go way back. You've been knowing this event. It's been kind of a game changer for you. So tell me about the relationship between you and Identiverse.
Yeah, well, it started out as the single sign-on summit several years ago. And then as it grew and the sort of landscape changed a little bit, then it became the Cloud Identity Summit. And then more recently, it was renamed to Identiverse. So it's been really fun to be part of this whole community that the conference has built over the years. And it's great to see so many friends here and familiar faces as well every year coming back to Identiverse.
For anyone that's looked you up on Google, they would see that you've been on a lot of events like this. You've spoken on a lot of events like this. You've been on a lot of podcasts, a lot of shows, and they're going to quickly know that you have a lot of experience in the identity space. Looking back, when you first got into identity, what was your entry point, and also what was the state of identity back then?
Yeah, I think like many of us, I started in the security, from the security perspective, and because identity management didn't exist as a distinct discipline, if you will, or even as a market category. So there's probably late 90s, early 2000s is when there was security, and then there was directories. Directories, LDAP directories were basically all identity was about at that time.
Yep.
And then, once the web really became prevalent, then obviously there was more of a need to address identity specifically. So it sort of, branched out from security and from directory and into its own thing at that time.
I was just mentioning earlier on the stream that my first entry point into identity was Active Directory.
Okay.
That was why identity was important for me. You look at today, we're more connected than ever. It's all about data, it's all about applications, and identity is having a little bit of a glow up, which is exciting. How would you describe the current state of identity?
It's front and center is what I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It really has gained prominence, sometimes for the wrong reasons, because of identity breaches or the like.
Yep.
But I think it's front and center now because it is recognized as such an important aspect of doing business. We want to secure our business, but we also want to enable it. And to enable access and your experience with your applications or your apps and what have you, is so much of that is about identity. Knowing who you are, of course, but knowing about you, your preferences, and all of these other aspects. So identity is front and center now. So that feels pretty cool.
When you ask anyone in the cybersecurity space, especially, who are the big players in identity, you always hear Strata. So where does Strata fit in? What do you all do? And who are the organizations and roles that you're helping support?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Strata was founded, about 5 years ago by some industry veterans, let's say, folks who have been through the different cycles of, security and identity and how that's evolved over the years. I think the impetus for Strata being founded was, almost 5 years ago now, multi-cloud was really a thing, right?
Yep.
The impetus to migrate workloads to the cloud, typically the big three platforms, Amazon, Azure, and Google, was well underway. And what we found was that companies weren't just moving to one cloud platform, they were moving to several for different reasons, right? Some workloads here, some there, for different reasons. What that meant for identity was now you were multi-cloud and you were also multi-identity. Because each of those platforms treat identity in different ways. And oh, by the way, you still have a lot of your legacy environment in your data center using, say, even first generation identity systems.
Right.
So there was a lot of dissonance there, right, between your existing legacy identity infrastructure and now all of this cloud native stuff going on over here. So that really exposed an opportunity to take a different approach, a different perspective in this world, and that's where Strata came up with identity orchestration, as a way to abstract away those complexities from your application, so that you can now more easily modernize apps, and in particular modernize your authentication, because that's became such a risk in many ways. But also give you now the freedom to move, between different kinds of identity providers that you could not do before because you were locked in.
I love the idea of orchestration because it makes things like Legos. Like you're able to compose new workflows based off of your needs, and I would imagine that's one of the core pillars for Strata is allowing organizations to be free, like you mentioned. Who are the roles, like the titles that typically find Strata, that bring it to their stakeholders? Which roles it really speaks to? Which roles does Strata speak to most?
Well, and there are a lot of them are here at the conference.
Yeah, for sure.
Identity architects. So just like identity management became a thing of its own, now that is also a discipline for a career path, right? So identity architects, security architects. Those are probably a key audience profile for folks like us to talk to, for sure.
The team informed me that you all have a new product drop, and congratulations. I wanted to bring that up, hear about it, share with our audience as well. So what is that product?
Sure, yeah, thanks for asking. So last week we announced identity continuity.
Right.
So as I described, we have this multi-cloud world and multiple identity services running, and occasionally those cloud services fail. They fail, right? They go down, and now if I can't log in, I can't get to my business applications.
Yep.
So this has become more of an issue for our customers and for the industry at large, that's focusing more on the resiliency of your whole infrastructure. Cloud-based models, typically are 4 nines, whereas historically in a data center that we managed was you shooting for 5 nines of availability. So downtime happens, and with the continuity solution, now you have the ability to recognize when an identity service is no longer available, and now I can fail over to a backup situation and allow for continuous operations of my business. Because businesses recognize, they know how much it costs when they're offline, whether I can't build more widgets in my factory, or I can't sell more goods online, or whatever the business that they're in, they know how much it costs to be offline. So with continuity, we're giving them an option that really wasn't available before. Historically, you would think about doing backups and then you restore that environment to recover, for example. But that can take a long time.
For sure.
And so now we give them what we think is a much better option because of the architecture of the system.
So it sounds like if everything were to break loose, disaster happens, they could go from one provider to another provider with this solution.
That's correct. Absolutely correct.
Are organizations thinking, like that? I would imagine that the conversations are at least happening because we see outages from major players, whether it be Google, AWS. I see it a lot with a tool that I use called Notion.
Okay.
There's outages probably once a month, and these outages happen to be 8 a.m. on a Monday. It's devastating. It's almost like having a breach on a Friday.
Right.
So, what's been the reception by organizations and people at the conference on this new product so far?
It's been universally well accepted because this is, like I said, it's a challenge that they've had inadequate solutions for in the past. In the worst case, you're offline and you just have to wait for your identity service to come back online. That's horrible because you don't know how long the outage is going to be or how complex. Or you have backups, and that's a viable system to have, right? Belts and suspenders, it's all good. But it takes time to restore that environment again to get it operational. So having something that's more continuous really is a more optimal solution, and people are really responding positively to that.
That's amazing. I think it's always easy, especially as a technologist, to not put yourself close to the customer. If you were to go to a doctor's office and they can't log into their computer because of an identity issue, that's devastating, especially if something were to go down. So I always look at it that way. I'm inspired by, you all that are building the technologies that are going to help support our health, our safety, our wellness. When you look at the organizations that really get excited about Strata, which organizations, do you all typically work with and speak to the heart of?
Well, I think so many industries are uber connected now. You said that earlier, right? We're so connected. Everything is digital. So there isn't an industry really that doesn't have this kind of issue, whether it's manufacturing, of course, the healthcare scenarios that you described, super critical. Financial services, they're always very sensitive to downtime. I remember my days working at the bank, that was a very critical metric, the uptime, the availability of systems. So it's really pretty much across the board in government services as well, right? Because, citizens need access to their, state or local or federal services as well. So it's really across the board, across different industries.
Looking at the rest of the conference, what are you most excited to get out of Identiverse?
A lot of it is, is personal connections.
Yeah.
Just seeing people that you see once or twice a year at these kind of events. So that's fantastic. But also just there's, a number of people that always have something interesting to say that I want to make sure I'm at their session to hear that. And I have a session tomorrow, also on a panel session. We're talking about some new things happening in the industry. So there are a lot of different reasons.
Can you give us a little peek under the hood of what may be brought up during the panel?
Yes, absolutely. So it actually is a work effort that started here at Identiverse. It's another one of the amazing things that happen at events like this when people can get together and try to figure out how to solve tough problems. So a couple years ago, a group of people got together to talk about authorization and standards in that space, and it sort of fizzled out pretty quickly. But then last year, we got those folks together and some others, and it seemed to be the timing was right to try to address some of the potential standards that could be written for authorization systems. And that led to creating a charter that we submitted to the OpenID Foundation, and we started a new working group there called Authorization Exchange, or AuthZen for short. And since October, we've been working on an initial interoperability specification, which we demonstrated here this week already, yesterday morning. And then, so the panel tomorrow is basically to do a readout of all that, and then also just to describe the other profiles and specs that we'll be working on as a group. So it's incredibly gratifying to be part of a movement like that to help bring some positive changes to that piece of the identity market and to help with interoperability across different products.
I was really excited to meet you because of your experience, not only at this event and in the identity space, but your experience as a technologist as a whole. There's a lot of security leaders here. There's a lot of people that are watching this stream right now. For anyone that wants to be one step better at identity and access management, they don't know where to start. What would be your advice to them?
Well, if you can get justification to come to an event like this, it's a great place to start. I would also give a shout out to the ID Pro organization. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
We produce your podcast. Very familiar.
Yeah. So become a member. It's fairly inexpensive even to be an individual member of ID Pro. And it really helps you get connected with the identity community. So you can have that all year round, not just when you're here at an event like Identiverse.
Sound advice. Join ID Pro, come out to Identiverse. It's a great time and place. Gerry, it's been an honor and a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much. For anyone that's out there that's listening, watching this stream right now, be sure to learn more about Strata, learn more about Gerry by visiting securityweekly.com/Strata IDV. That's STRATA IDV. And with that, we'll see you on the next session.
Thanks, Ron.